Hey everyone! Today I'm going to be discussing energetics when applied to herbalism. This is something that I have been promising you all forever, that everyone has requested, which I'm super grateful for because in my opinion it's one of the most important parts of herbalism. And it's just taken me a while because I wanted to make this a really awesome video that I could share with everybody, that was set up more as like a course because there's so much information. But I just haven't had much luck getting help from a videographer, and it's just more important that I get this information out there than to try to mess with that in the first place. So, it's so hard to know where to start with energetics. Let's start with the definition. Energetics means observing patterns of energy. And, hello Bumblebee. My way of applying energetics to herbalism is applying that theory to both people and plants. So if we're observing patterns of energy within the human body and within the plant body, then we are much more easily able to pair plants and humans based on a condition, your energetics, etc. We'll get into it all. What does that mean, observing patterns of energy? I'm going to give you just a couple really basic examples. This is something that we can all visualize that makes it a little easier to think about this. So energetics is a lot more simple and intuitive than it might sound like. For example, it's really hot and humid here right now. And if someone were to bring me a cup of hot soup, I would be like, absolutely not. Get me a popsicle or some ice cream or some ice cold tea. Because my body is hot, I really want something cooling and soothing to eliminate that hotness. Another example is if I had allergies, which I don't at the moment, my son does, and someone were to be like, come inside, let's steam those allergies out. It is so humid and gross outside right now. The last thing in the world that I would want is steam in my face. Another example is in the winter when it is really freezing cold and you're wearing a big coat and maybe it's even snowing outside. Rather than going and picking up ice cream, you're probably going to want to get something like hot tea or hot soup, etc. So that there is literally energetics. That is your body intuitively saying, I'm hot, cool me down. I'm cold, warm me up. And this can also be applied to fevers. When you have a cold, right, your body is literally telling you that it needs hot warmth. And this is why when you have a cold, things like adding a little bit of cayenne or hot sauce to your soup or fresh ginger to your tea really helps you get that mucus up and can really help you to kind of get that fever out of the way, sweat those toxins out, and get through a cold faster. So this is the way that you really want to be thinking, and this is just something that comes naturally to most of us, and you really want to just apply it everywhere that you can. And here's the thing that comes up for me a lot when teaching and with patrons. People often say to me, oh, I made this watching your video, but I feel like yours is better. I feel like I am inexperienced and so mine's not going to be as good as yours. It's hard to respond to that directly because of course there is some nuance to it, but to me this says that someone does not trust their own intuition. And personally, learning energetics and applying them to herbalism is what got me to go, oh wow, my intuition has literally been begging me to learn this my entire life. My intuition has told me all of these things, but it didn't become real for me until I read them or I heard them from someone else. And we're all guilty of that. We're literally programmed to think that way. We are programmed to want to pay people for knowledge, and it doesn't feel legitimate until we've done that, until we've gotten some sort of seal of approval, if we've been called a master or given a certificate, and all of that is horseshit. In fact, most of what we know about herbalism, a lot of it has been scientifically proven, but it didn't come from scientists. all of these things that we know, for the most part, have come from generations of observing patterns and energy outside and inside, right? And through generations of family passing these traditions down, we had a pretty basic idea of like, oh, elderberries are really great for preventing colds. Oh, ginger is really warming and helps get that phlegm up and really helps beat colds. Chewing on licorice or fennel seeds can help ease an upset stomach. You know, these are pretty simple things that people living in the land and off of the land have just learned through observation. And of course, science came around and became this very legitimate thing that if someone who was a licensed scientist could prove these theories, then it was true. And of course, we could really break down like just what that means, but maybe today's not the best day for that. But needless to say, we are the original scientists. Your ancestors are the original scientists. And someone with a little piece of paper that proved it right, you know, we're thankful for them. They've done a lot for us. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. What I'm trying to do is upplay your doubt in your intuition and all that your ancestors have done to give you that. So just some perspective for you to think about. All that said, there are quite a few plants, I'm actually sitting here with several of them, that have traditional uses that have not yet been scientifically proven. And this is true for tons of plants, tons of mushrooms, trees, berries, everything. And that's because science is pretty busy. You know, they just haven't had time to get around to it yet. So if you go to research the uses medicinally or therapeutically of a plant and your result on Google or in a book is that it just hasn't been studied yet, all that means is that it has not gone through the hands of a scientist yet. And so a lot of times what you'll see is either traditional uses, meaning historically people have been using it in this way, or you might also see a modern herbalist. I say this a lot, but Seven Song is one of the people who does this, one of the few people who will say, oh man, I love working with this plant and there's not really much documented information on it. I'm gonna do some tests myself. And guess what? He performs studies just like a scientist would. And he's often doing them on himself, maybe a willing client or friend, and he's documenting the observed patterns of energy over time. And that is exactly what a scientist would do, often on an animal and not a person. So, you know, the studies that we do are just as legitimate. And when you sign up for beginner herbalism courses or basic herbalism courses or groups, oftentimes they will give you one plant a month to study. And they want you to spend the whole 30 days studying, observing that plant. And there's a really, really good reason for that. And it's to get you to observe those patterns of energy and to learn and observe and see these theories with your own eyes and feel them with your own body and your senses. And so if you spend a month with, let's just say, calendula, drinking the tea, taking the tincture, applying the oil topically, you are performing a study on that plant, and everything that you observe within your body of using this plant daily for 30 days is a very legitimate study. And they're also trying to get you in the habit of documenting these experiences with plants. So of course, the results that we see are going to be a really important part of this documentation, but even more than that, your senses, the sensory experience of using a plant is just as important and has some really key indicators. So that's going to bring us back to the I'm hot, I want ice cream, I'm cold, I want soup theory. So for example, calendula. Let's talk about, let's say calendula and chamomile. I'm trying to think of some herbs that we've all experienced versus like ginger and turmeric, black pepper, cayenne. So over here we've got like rose, chamomile, calendula, marshmallow root. These are very cooling, soothing, soft, gentle herbs. And then over here we've got turmeric, ginger, cayenne, black pepper. These are really hot, warming, spicy herbs. So the sensory that you're experiencing with these two categories is very different. When you take a calendula tincture, or let's say like a sip of a really light tea that's got like marshmallow root and calendula and stuff in it, it's cooling, not only immediately to your tongue and your mouth, but to your insides when you feel it go through your digestive tract. It is literally cooling the body. It's moistening. And then let's think, ginger, turmeric, black pepper, cayenne. This is super sensory overload. It's like tingly, spicy, hot. You can feel the warmth go through your digestive tract. Sometimes you might even get heartburn from it. So what you're experiencing is, your sense of smell, your sense of taste, the way it's feeling, being digested. And that tells us a lot about an herb. And this, again, I'm going to trail off a little bit here, but energetics, again, is what got me to trust my own intuition. And my first passion with herbalism was identifying the plants immediately around me. And I was most interested in using these plants, learning about these plants, not so much learning about plants that don't grow here, that I have to order dried from some other country, etc. This was what fascinated me. And like I mentioned, a lot of these herbs they haven't been studied, they're not well documented, and you can't buy them online. I'm going to get into that in a second, but I'm standing next to a ton of those. And so what are some things that you can do to learn about a plant if you can't find much research or studies about it? Use your senses. Observe the patterns of energy. So let's talk about it. Right here, I've got ironweed, some purple ironweed. Oh, come on. I've also got a beautiful passion flower and some partridge pea. I really want to grab one more thing. Hold on. Okay, now I've got quite a few things. I've got ragweed, I've got goldenrod, I've got partridge pea, I've got passion flower, frostweed, that's this white one, and ironweed. So I'm going to start with ironweed because this is the one that I wanted to reach for first. I'm going to take just a little pinch of this flower or leaf. Give it a little nibble. You can spit it out. You don't even have to digest it, because let's say you don't have me on the other end of this screen, you have no clue what this plant is, and you're trying to do your own observations. Well, you might not know if it's poisonous, so you can always take a little nibble and spit it out. So that's what we just did. While this was in my mouth, it was incredibly bitter. And that is because this plant is very tannin rich. Same with our friend goldenrod. So I'm going to take a little nibble here. Goldenrod is much milder. I say that. It is more mild than the ironweed. Speaking of, my favorite color combination in nature ever. Beautiful sign of fall. Both of these are very bitter, and there's a very specific taste to tannin-rich herbs. And I suggest that you go and taste it so that you can find that out for yourself. But it's not just bitter. There's like, it activates these glands. I need to remember what those are called. And it's like not tart, but almost. And raspberry is another example. A lot of tree barks like oak, walnut, these are really tannin-rich things. And the cool thing about being familiar with this is that, okay, we're starting to draw some observations. We know that these are tannin-rich herbs. Well, if you learn about tannin-rich herbs, then you can start to assume certain properties of a plant. Tannin-rich herbs are almost always going to be, oh, I knew this word was going to escape me. It's one of my favorite words. And there's tons of like late summer, fall herbs that are this way. It's such a simple thing. They're tonifying, astringent. These are very astringent herbs. Very tannin-rich plants and trees are very astringent. What does astringent mean? Maybe your only familiarity with this word was those horrible wipes that we used in the late 90s, early 2000s that were just like pure salicylic acid on your face. But astringent is going to shrink and tighten and tone. Remember these words. We're going to come back to them soon. Okay, now I'm going to reach for partridge pea and passion flower. So I'm going to take this little pea flower. Amazing. And now I'm going to take a little bit of my passion flower. Amazing. These are almost tasteless. It's just like very light, very cooling, especially the passion flower. Pretty neutral herbs. Like it's not hot, it's not bitter, it just is a plant. And that is typically going to resemble tonic herbs. Now, that's not to say that all herbs that taste this way are tonic, but tonic herbs are typically very mild and gentle. A lot of nervine herbs fall into this category as well. Oh, sorry, major itch down there. So the point being, oh, one more thing. You always want to interact with plants, even if it's a plant that you're not studying. Smell it, taste it, get familiar with what these things tell you through their scent and through their taste and the way they feel, okay? And, what I wanted to talk about was this ironweed and frostweed, but really this ironweed. You can't buy this at, Mountain Rose Herbs. People don't really grow it, maybe flower farms. This is a hyper-local plant. That's what I call them, at least. This is something that you have to go outside to get. And I love this herb. I love using this herb. I typically drink it in teas for my menstrual cycle. But this is something that I didn't learn about from a book. And I didn't buy it online. I learned about it by interacting with it outside, and it became one of my favorite plants. I also think it's very underrated. This is a very astringent herb. It's wonderful for tonifying the uterus when you're experiencing your menstrual cycle. It's wonderful if you have a UTI. It's wonderful for just all that stuff. Very, again, tightening, tonifying. It's got a very mild taste. Am I getting eaten by chiggers? I sure hope not. Okay, where do I want to go from here? Hyperlocal herbs. Wouldn't have learned about it without that. Energetics. You know what? Let's talk about one more thing that you can only learn in nature before I walk away from this little area and start trailing on to something else. I am walking over to my friend pokeberry, and if I was close to elderberry at the moment, I could also use that for this example. So here we are with poke. It's got these long dingly danglies. Now poke the berries has this beautiful color. Let me get situated. Oh, okay, I think it's gonna stay. You can already see the color. Oh, you're gonna fall. Coming out on my fingers. Definitely, I always get the urge to put it on like lipstick. And it is so beautiful. Okay, lesson from nature. If you put a pokeberry in your mouth, woo! Nothing in your body is saying swallow this. Nothing in your body is saying feed me more, okay? This is not a pleasant experience. It's very acrid, very bitter. Is my whole mouth pink? No, just my tongue and lips. Same with raw elderberry. And then the other thing is it has these stone seeds. I should have shown you, and so does elderberry. If you were to chew on that, your teeth would hurt, and your instinct would literally say, spit it out. And so, you know, people are always like, oh, elderberry and pokeberry, they're toxic, they're poisonous. Stay away from those. Like, people will see you post a photo of them without saying anything. And I understand the concern. We do have to be concerned for people who aren't going to do their research and aren't going to listen to their instincts. But this is a really great example right here of that when you do listen to your instincts, they tell you what the fuck is up. You would not come out here and eat a handful of raw pokeberries, and therefore you are not going to get sick from taking poke. And let's say you did eat a handful because someone was like, oh, poke is actually really good if you have like crazy lymphatic stuff going on, or if you have like a flu or pneumonia or something that you really can't shake. And let's say you did no research, you came out and you grabbed a handful of pokeberries and ate it. Guarantee you would spit the seeds out. Guess where most of the toxic properties are? I swear I just heard someone say my name. In the seeds. So you would want to spit those seeds out, okay? So just a beautiful little lesson from nature. And I can't ignore my friend Shiso while we're sitting right here. Side note, every time I say the word Shiso, my brain goes, she's so high, high above me. Okay, let me get a little spit for you. So if you're looking at Shiso head on, it's pretty obvious that it's a mint family plant. How do we know? Well, it's got the alternating leaves, crisscross, crisscross. It's got the square stem and this really defined leaf shape. Then you get a little closer and you smell it, taste it. Yeah, that's a mint family plant. I love Shiso. I am not going to go on a tangent on it because this is about energetics and not about Shiso. So I'm just going to stop here, but say these are some awesome identifying features that help us decipher what family a plant is in. The taste and the smell is very inviting, and it tells us that this is a mint family plant, and so we can start to draw some conclusions that this could be used similarly to mint, right? Pretty cool. Okay, where do we want to go from here? I'm going to take a quick pause. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and call this the ending to part 1. I got to go pick my kid up from school, so the next time we talk about this, I'll be in different clothes. It'll be a different day. There might even be different plants out. So let's just say this was part 1, a little intro to energetics. The next time we meet and talk, I will be going over some more specifics. For example, the energetics that I use and that I have studied is a theory presented by Matthew Wood. It is not just his theory, okay? This is a theory that has come together from all over the globe through many, many years, far before we had ways to communicate with different countries, all right? Traditional Chinese medicine used this, Aristotle used this, Galen used this, what's it called? So many of you love it. What the heck is it called? The doshas. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't remember this word. Indian people used it. Everyone had these sort of theories of yin and yang, hot and cold, wet and dry. And so what Matthew Wood has sort of taken all these philosophies from around the world in different times and brought together is that there are actually 6 states, okay? And it's not just hot and cold, it's also damp and dry. It's also, your tissues are either tense or relaxed. And then there's 2 more. Come on, Tori. Oh, wait, no, I said it all. Hot, dry. Hot, cold, damp, dry, tense, relaxed. No, that is it. Okay. It's hard to speak in this legitimate way sometimes. And so, I mean, I feel like that's a little self-explanatory, but you think about your tissues, you think about the reaction that you're having when you taste a bitter, acrid plant, that's contracting and tensing and tightening those muscles, whereas if something causes you to like really salivate, or something's really moistening, like marshmallow root, then your tissues are gonna be much more like loose and kind of drooly, especially things that get you like really wet and snotty and help you to blow your nose. Those are just some good examples of the opposite of that, like tense contract. Okay. Some other examples are diarrhea, right? Your stools become loose, the muscles are loose, like everything's kind of loose. Whereas when you're constipated, everything's like really tight and dry. Okay. Gross examples, but it's real life. And then, yeah, same with allergies. So, right now, allergy season, really hot and humid out. If people are just like snotty and their eyes are watering and everything is so like loose and wet, you're really going to want things like my friend Goldenrod here and maybe some ragweed, even, that are going to dry you up, not moisten like marshmallow. Dry those sinuses up, those allergies up. So, this is why energetics is so important. If someone has a cough, rather than going, oh, I've heard this, and this are good for a cough, right? It really depends on the cough. Is it a dry cough? Are you having a hard time getting any mucus up? Or is it a really wet, boggy cough where you're just constantly coughing up mucus? Because those are very opposite ends of the spectrum that are going to require very different herbs, and using the wrong herbs could far exacerbate the condition. So this is really what helps you to level up as an herbalist, whether you're just an herbalist for your family, for your neighbors and friends, what have you. All right. So I'll see you on part 2.